As part of President Donald Trump's plan to shutter the Department of Education, nearly half of the department's workforce will be cut, according to an announcement made Tuesday. Joining me to dig deeper into this story is reporter for the Center Square, Brett Rowland. So, Brett, Education Secretary Linda McMahon said the move is part of the department's final mission, insinuating that the closing of the Department of Education is near. What is the Trump administration's reasoning behind the move?
I think every Republican administration since Reagan has wanted to get rid of the Department of Education. Trump seems to be the first one that's actually taking strides to do that. We'll see how successful that will be, in the coming months and years. But my guess is that this is the start of a long process. The Education Department is actually a fairly small government agency with only about 4,100 employees, and about half of those are gone starting later this month. So we'll start to see that happen here pretty quickly.
And how would downsizing the department's workforce, as what just happened, how would that impact the Education Department's work, according to both McMahon and then also to other concerned parties?
So the Trump administration, including McMahon, wants to return education decisions to the state level, saying that state and local governments are in the best position to determine what their students need in terms of education. But there are national unions that have opposed this, including the National Education Association, which is the largest union in the United States. That union, President Becky Pringle said yesterday that essentially gutting the Department of Education will lead to higher class sizes, cuts in education, and make education more expensive for middle class families. So there's a lot of conflicting information here. Trump thinks that education will continue on as it has in the past, just done at the state level. And unions in particular are concerned that these cuts could essentially, what they're saying is destroy education in the United States.
And given the department's involvement, as you were saying, what about specifically in regard to Title IX and Pell Grants and student loans? In terms of if the department is fully abolished, what are people saying about that?
Well, so there's a couple different schools of thought here. One is that there are other agencies within the federal government that have a lot of experience doing things like loans and investigating civil rights abuses, including like the DOJ, the Small Business Administration for the loans. So there are other federal agencies that could do these, that could take over these responsibilities for the Department of Education should it be eliminated. But my guess is that there would be at least some difficulty in transitioning those. Oftentimes we see that when we get down to sort of the base level, sometimes these computer systems between agencies don't interact well. Sometimes entirely new workarounds need to be created. So there could be a lot of logistical hurdles here too, in addition to just getting rid of the department, if that's in fact the plan. So there are other agencies that could take over the roles, what Trump sees as the important roles of the department, including, the Title IX enforcement could be handed off to DOJ. The loans could go to SBA or another agency that has a lot of experience with lending money and grants. And there are several. So there's some options there, but I think that they're likely going to prove more challenging than people might expect.
So what does the scale of those cuts look like as of right now?
That's a great question. So when Trump took office in January, the Department of Education had about 4,133 workers. So after Tuesday's announcement, the department's workforce will be about 2,183 workers. Included in that reduction in force are nearly 600 employees who took voluntary resignation opportunities. So that was 259 employees accepted the deferred resignation program, which was referred to often as a buyout in the media. And then another 313 employees accepted a voluntary separation incentive pay. And that was from the department specifically. So that really about cuts the department's workforce in half, which is a staggering amount of people given the size of the department and its role in education. But as we talked about before, some of those duties may be shifted to other agencies that may have staffing or the ability to handle those tasks. I've also heard that there's quite a bit of backlash to this. In particular, what's happening today? Have you heard anything about how people are reacting to the cuts?
Well, as you were saying, with just different unions reacting, I mean, all teachers' unions are very opposed to this. Especially, many advocates are concerned about how student loans will be managed. Like you said, there could be other departments that take those up, but the transition will be difficult. And the managing of student loans, of course, has been a problem for decades. Currently, there's roughly 1 trillion in outstanding student loans in FAFSA, so loans that haven't been paid yet. So it all fits, I think, into this larger picture of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, that the Trump administration is pursuing, where they say that they're trying to cut bureaucratic bloat. But the real question is, and what people are pushing back against, these education advocates, they're saying, how are you going to facilitate this? I mean, they're completely against it anyway, but that's the main question. How is this all going to work? How are students going to pay their loans back? What is the organization going to look like? And it doesn't seem like the Trump administration has many answers to those questions yet.
My guess is that those will start coming in the coming weeks or months, depending on how long this process takes. But my guess, just personally, is that it's going to be a long one. I've seen my wife. I've dealt with student loans myself. My wife trying to pay them back and getting told, to pay different amounts each month by one by the servicing company, one by the government. So the student loans have been a mess for a long time. But my guess is this will take months to play out.
Right. And there were actually rumors about a week ago that Trump would sign an executive order actually to dismantle the Department of Education, which has not happened yet. And the legality of a measure like that is very much in question. Most experts are saying that that wouldn't be legal, that you would need congressional approval. You would need a bill to go through Congress in order to do that. So that's another factor in it. So this current cutting that we're seeing, the essentially halving of the education department workforce, that it seems like President Trump can do, most people are saying. And so the question is whether he will continue to cut to where the agency is effectively shuttered, or whether he's going to try to do it via executive order. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks.
Right. And my guess is that no matter which way he goes, there's going to be pushback either legally through Congress or the next administration.